It's your junior year. You're sitting in your high school's cafeteria, surrounded by your fellow classmates, all filled with anxiety, preparing to take the biggest test of your high school career. It's SAT testing day. Whether you've thought about it or not, standardized testing has revolutionized the way teachers are teaching and students are learning. Many find that these tests are helpful, but many also find that it puts far too much pressure on students. These tests help teachers and school heads determine an effective way to teach and which areas in their curriculum are excelling, but it also can result in defunding of schools and the loss of their jobs. Regardless of your belief, test taking has become an annual event in the United States, and it's greatly impacting teachers as well as students. Taken a standardized test, but do you really know what a standardized test is? According to Micah Izzett and Maureen McCannon, a standardized test is one that is given to evaluate the performance of students relative to all other students with the same characteristics. And it is also the primary method in the United States to measure performance of educational institutions and determine what schools get funding and which get less. That means if your school performs well, they get more money. If they perform poorly, they get less money. I bet you can think back to a time when your principal gave you a pizza party as an incentive if you did well on your SAT test or any standardized test. This is a way to ensure that the school would get more funding because you guys wanted to get a better score to get that pizza party. In 2002, the No Child Left Behind Act was instilled, which made annual test taking a thing, really, in all 50 states. This act is what really sparked the debate because they had to determine if standardized testing was actually effective and what age was appropriate to start standardized testing. With any debate, there are pros and cons. There are a lot of pros to standardized testing, including that they are fair and objective. They're fair and objective because they are given by the government and they are used to measure students' abilities, so they keep it very open and not like it's inclusive for all. In a study done by Micah Izzett and Maureen McCannon, it showed that most parents agreed with these methods because it's low cost and it takes up minimal time in the classroom. The teachers and school heads also find this test very effective because it gives a lot of helpful information to the schools, including which areas are excelling and which ones need more work. This also keeps the taxpayers happy because if the students are performing well on tests, that means their money is going to good use. Students are taught from a young age how to take a test, so they've been preparing for these major tests like the SATs their whole lives without even knowing it. However, there are some major cons to standardized testing. According to Sarah Glazer, schools are now being forced to have a very narrow curriculum and using the drill-like teach-to-test method. Because of this method, teachers have very little freedom in their classroom and students are just learning how to take a test at a very young age. Because of this method, they're not being able to learn through play and creativity just isn't being appreciated anymore. If students just learn how to take a test, are they really learning information at all? If they're just learning to answer the question on the test, they're not really learning the information for future use. Sarah mentioned in her article how up to 80% of top high school students have admitted to cheating on a test at least once in their high school career. This is because of that teach-to-test method is instilled on them at such a young age. The students feel such a heavy pressure to perform well on tests that they have no choice but to cheat. They have to cheat because they didn't learn the information. They just learned how to take the test. They're striving for perfection when we should just be teaching the children information, not how to take a test. Another reason that some students don't perform well on tests is because there are 8 different learning styles. These learning styles include musical, bodily, interpersonal, verbal, logical, naturalistic, intrapersonal, and visual. The SAT is just a multiple choice test that doesn't apply to all the different learning styles. The SAT does not apply to all these different learning styles, and it's just a right or wrong answer. I myself am an auditory learner. I need to hear the information so I can recall the information that I've learned in the past. I struggle just reading a question, retaining the information, and trying to figure out the answer. Standardized tests are objective, but they're not the most effective way. There needs to be a better way to teach children and prepare them to take a test. Sarah Salaki wrote in an article on different countries around the world because the United States is not the only one who's doing standardized testing. For example, on one hand of the spectrum, Finland does very minimal testing. They have one major test, that's it, at the end of their senior year. And regardless of all of that and not using the teach to test method, they're one of the highest ranking countries in the world according to their test scores. On the other hand of the spectrum, there's China, who is the mother of standardized testing. They have one extremely high risk test that determines what college they'll go into and their potential earnings. This test is so high stress that they have to have ambulances on standby, and construction in the city completely shuts down. This test in China is 12 hours long and goes over a 2-day period. So yes, the United States is not the only one doing standardized testing. It is wildly popular across the whole world, but we're constantly striving to get number one when instead we should be learning from other countries, working together to figure out the most effective way to test our students. This is still a popular method, but it's not the most effective. I scored an 1180 on my SATs after taking it twice. The normal person just takes it once. It's not the best score, but it's not the worst either, and I still got into every school I wanted to. So try hard on your SATs, but not too hard. You also need to try because if you don't try on your SATs or any standardized testing, that could result in defunding of your school, which could result in the loss of teachers' jobs. I leave you with one fun fact. Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, did not score well on his SATs, and he still became president. A test does not determine your future. You do.